3 years ago, my wife and I retired to Greece, to the Peloponnese, and we love it there. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's a fantastic lifestyle. But I'm here in the UK. It's a beautiful day, you can see. And I just started thinking about, what have I learned? What lessons do I wish I'd known 3 years ago or before when we were making our decisions? What would have changed things? And this video is about those, perhaps the intangibles. This isn't about visas or property or location. This is about those things that I've learnt are important since I've lived there. And I'm going to share them with you. So I hope this video is useful to you if you're thinking about moving overseas or retiring to Greece. Because to be honest, wherever you go, these lessons are valuable. I think the first 3 points I'm going to make are really important before you consider and decide finally where to retire. The first is one of accessibility. Inevitably, and rightly, a lot of people come to Greece in the summer. They go to the islands, they see this fantastic environment, this vibrant, lively, beautiful place, and they want it all year round, and I don't blame them. That's what I want. That's why I live in Greece. You want that retirement in Greece. You don't want it in the UK. But the reality is, it is not all year round. The islands are open typically between about early May and late September. And outside that period, they're really dead, closed and shut. I can't stress that enough. Moreover, they're really difficult to access. Now, Crete may be an exception. It's got 750,000 people. It's the biggest island. But pretty well every other island moves on to a winter timetable. Often, if they have an airport, it will shut. It just won't operate in the winter because there isn't sufficient trade. And instead of having ferries every day or twice a day or 3 times a day, you might be lucky if you get more than 1 a week. So imagine you're in the islands, you've bought your house, you've retired there, it's December, you want to go Christmas shopping. Well, you have to go to the mainland to do it. You can't fly. The ferry's on Thursday, it's Monday, well, you're going to wait till Thursday. Then on Wednesday night, there's a storm warning. What do? They cancel the ferries, so you've got another week to wait. It becomes a real problem, and it shouldn't be underestimated. And I would seriously suggest, because of the accessibility issue, that you consider the mainland. There are loads of places in the mainland, relatively close to the big urban sites, Athens obviously, but Saloniki, Kalamata, Nafplio and so on, that give you accessibility that you don't enjoy all year round in the islands. And I just can't stress enough, if there was one thing I've learned, it's about access, access, access. So, if being able to get to and from where you live is important, my second learning is just as important: healthcare. Healthcare in Greece, let's be clear, is actually really good. There's a good national system, although it can be quite difficult to access, particularly as foreigners. You have to have what's known as an AMCA number, and to get one of those is pretty difficult. And even if you do, you generally have to pay for a lot of these services anyway. But assuming you can, then getting access to it is pretty easy. A lot easier than, say, here in the UK, which is a shame. But there's also a very good private system in Greece, and it's very affordable compared to, say, the UK or the States. If I want to go and see a dietitian or a urologist, I can do so very easily for perhaps €50. It's not expensive, it's very accessible, and I don't have to wait months. I can go and see someone tomorrow morning. Similarly, with microbiological services, blood tests, urine tests, etc. Every major town will have at least one private microbiologist. You go along at 9 AM in the morning. If you need the results by midday, they will do it for you, and it's not expensive, maybe €10 a test. So accessing healthcare is pretty easy, but it depends where you are. And this brings me back again really to the accessibility. If you're going to live in the islands, your access to decent healthcare facilities is likely to be very limited. Now, this may not seem to be a problem for you. You know, I'm in my mid-50s, I'm healthy, it doesn't matter. But it does matter, because if you're buying somewhere to retire, you're going to be there a long time potentially, and you need to be able to access decent hospitals, healthcare facilities and so on. And to do that, you really have to be able to get to Athens, and you need to think about how you're going to do that. You don't want to have to hire a hotel or rent an Airbnb every time you need a hospital appointment in Athens. And it is Athens that we're talking about, really. There are very, very good private hospitals in Athens. I would advise, if you can, have private healthcare in Greece. It makes a lot of sense, because although I've said, you know, the national healthcare system exists and operates, you can't rely on it, particularly for serious things. If something, God forbid, serious happens to any of you, then you need to have private healthcare. You need to be able to access Athens. And that again brings me down to the accessibility. How are you going to get there? How How are you going to access it? How are you going to stay there? And this didn't become a major issue for me until I turned 50. When you turn 50, everything that can go wrong with your body goes wrong, trust me. And you suddenly need to start to access healthcare. And you suddenly realise that if you live in the middle of nowhere, you have a bit of a problem. So I would very seriously consider about your long-term needs when you are deciding where you're going to live in Greece or anywhere in the world, and how you're going to access healthcare. How easy is it going to be for you to do that? And I'm not talking about, as I said, a blood test or a runny nose. I'm talking about, unfortunately, the serious things that can and do happen to people as we get older. This brings me on to number 3, facilities, restaurants, bars, shops. Most people, when they visit Greece, and they get the Greek bug, they come in the summer, it's lively, it's busy, it's packed. And I've already mentioned, in the winter, everything closes, particularly in the islands and outside the major urban conurbations, you know, Kalamata, Athens, Saloniki, Patras, Lamia. You know, if you're away from those places, in the winter, things become very, very dead. I'm sorry, it's true. Even where I live 2 hours from Athens. February, the place is dead. All the restaurants are shut, all the bars are shut. If I want to go shopping, I have to go 40, 50 minutes. Really, I go to Athens, to be honest, at that time of year. And you have to consider that. You know, you may say, oh, I don't need shops, I don't need to worry about restaurants and so on. But there will come a time when you want that new piece of furniture, or you want that, in my case, new camera, or you need to access services and facilities. You want to meet friends, and you've got to consider places which allow you to do that all year round, the major urban conurbations. Because if you don't have to live in them, but if you don't have easy access to them, you're living there all year round. You're not just there in the summer. You're not just there when everything's open for the tourists, and you really need to consider that. It's one of the big regrets I have about where we live. I love where we live, Paralyos in the summer. It's fabulous, 20,000 people a day. It's life and soul, it's brilliant. But in the winter, the place dies. And to the point where we're actually thinking about buying a second place in Athens so that we have somewhere to go in the winter. And this is why half the Greek population almost lives in Athens. There's a reason for it. So do consider that. And the further you go from these big major centres, if you're out in the islands and so on, you're really stuffed. Yes, there's Amazon. We use Amazon Germany, Amazon DE. And there's also Scrooge, which is the Greek equivalent. And actually deliveries are very good. I found deliveries to be excellent. But again, they're infrequent. And you don't just want to rely on online shopping, you want to have some sort of life. So as I said, facilities, do consider all year round what there is, what you're going to do. So my number 4, lifestyle and community. It's all very well thinking about accessibility and healthcare and facilities, but what are you going to do? Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to socialise with? Now, that's entirely a personal thing. You have to decide what you want, but you need to pick a place where there are going to be people of a similar mindset, perhaps who you can communicate with if you don't speak Greek, English, etc., and whom are going to welcome you into the community. Now, not everywhere has that. Crete certainly does, you know, nice English community in Crete. Athens does as well. And it may not be English, it may be other cultures or nationalities. But you have to think about that. Do your research. Don't just think about the accessibility, the healthcare, the facilities. Also think about your lifestyle, what you want out of it, and how you're going to get that from where you choose to live, because it's really important. Where I live, there aren't that many foreigners. I joke all the time, I'm the only English in the village. It's true, I am the only English in the village. I have Dutch friends, I have Canadian friends, I have German friends, but it's taken me time to meet them and make those friends, because there aren't that many foreigners where I live, and there's no organised community or anything such as that. So have a look on Facebook, have a look on Instagram, research the place before you go if you want an active social life. So my number 5 is language, and Greek specifically. Greek is a really difficult language to learn. I've been married to my wonderful wife for 25 years, Greek woman, and my Greek is poor at best. Yes, I can manage, I can get around, I can order things, I can have basic conversations, I can buy what I need, but I have found it very difficult, and it's not held me back. And there are lots of people on YouTube and other social media sites who say, oh, it's essential that you learn Greek. I do agree that you should make an effort to learn Greek, and if it comes easily to you, brilliant, well done. But it's a very difficult language. In Ediskolo, it's very difficult. So my experience is it's not absolutely essential. Out of courtesy and necessity, you should try and learn But don't feel you have to learn. The Greeks are wonderful people. They're not really xenophobic. There is a little bit of racism in Greece, but I've never encountered it. That said, you know, I'm not trying to justify it either. But the Greeks are used to foreigners. They're used to other languages. Most people under 40 have some decent Greek because it was taught at school. Older generations, perhaps not, but you will manage whether you speak Greek or not. Now, having talked about language, it brings me to my number 6, Greek bureaucracy. Now, Greece is infamous, I think it's fair to say, for their bureaucracy. It's generally been extremely difficult to do things in Greece of a bureaucratic nature. You have to get a stamp here, you have to get a stamp here, there, you have to get 3 different buildings, etc., etc. It has got a lot easier. Since COVID, they rolled out gov.gr, which is their digital service, and it's still rolling out, but it has greatly, greatly improved things. And even if you don't speak Greek, you can manage. You go to what's known as the KEP, the local citizens' advice. Every small village and town has one. Get to know the KEP. They will help you. Even if you don't speak Greek, even if you can't fill in the forms, they will help you do it. And there are forms to fill in, there are things to do. A lot of it now you can do online. I can reapply for my visa, initially at least, online, book appointments online. So things are changing and things are improving. That said, I'm incredibly lucky because my wife is Greek, comes from Athens, speaks Greek, and does it all for me. But don't let it scare you, attack it head on, and it's not as bad as it used to be before. My number 7 isn't really a learning. I've been incredibly lucky. I've lived and worked in 4 different countries, both in Europe and Asia. And it's just something I've learnt with all of them. And that is, you have to go with the flow. The expression we used to have in Vietnam is TIV. This is Vietnam. And quite simply, if you see something that astonishes you or surprises you, but is a cultural norm out there, just go with it. Accept it. And I would say exactly the same in Greece. TIG. Greece isn't that foreign, it's a European nation, but everywhere has its own cultural identity and idiosyncrasies. And Greece is no exception. And we are guests there. I'm a very grateful guest in Greece. Yes, I'm very lucky that I married a Greek, but I'm not there to change the world. I'm there to learn and adapt to their culture, not have them adapt to me. And I would strongly suggest that if you're going to go and retire in Greece or anywhere else, you take that attitude. When I used to work in Vietnam or in China, you had 2 types of expat. Those who would come, stay, love it and stay for as long as they could, and those who wouldn't last 6 months. And the reason they didn't last 6 months was because they couldn't adapt and go with the flow and understand the cultural idiosyncrasies of the place they were living in. It's so important. If you can, you'll have an amazing time, and I would recommend it. I'm thinking of doing a couple more videos, one to cover my experiences of obtaining a residency visa in Greece, and another of buying property. So if that's of interest to you, please let me know. Comment below or leave me a like. I'd really like to do more in this series. I think perhaps I have some value to offer to those who are thinking of coming to Greece. But let me know. Thank you for watching. Please enjoy whatever you do. I'm enjoying my holiday, and I look forward to perhaps you watching some of my other videos and speaking with you soon. Thank you.